For those of you that clicked the video knowing that this is a video about Kanye West and you still want to stay here, continue watching. For the rest who don't, click off. I don't care if you don't care about Kanye or if you don't care about politics. Don't watch it. This is the third video I'm making on Kanye West in a week, and I listen to what he's been saying, and every time I've made a video, I've always felt like this is the last time I have to address anything, or the last time I have to get something off my chest, or the last time I have to mention something that I disagree with in regards to something that he said. But every time it's just been something else and something else and something else. The first time it was Kanye endorsing Trump, which, hey, political opinion or personal opinion is personal opinion. You know, at the end of the day, that's his decision to endorse someone who is very controversial and who many people believe is harming, you know, a good portion of the demographic that they believed at one point Kanye was catering to, which is black people. Then he came out and said what he said on the T.I. song. He kind of mixed in his views on America and his views on the country and free thinking in a track with T.I. that in my opinion was horrible. I felt like T.I. was only on that song to make Kanye West come off less crazy than the world already viewed him to be. But the next one's probably the worst, if you want to say, publicity stunt Kanye has ever pulled, if this is what you would want to call it, based off his TMZ comments. But I see a lot of instability with Kanye. If I watch his Charlamagne interview, which I went back and I watched it, an hour and 45 minutes, and I enjoyed their chemistry. I enjoyed how natural the setting was. I enjoyed how to the ground and, you know, down to earth most of it was. I can't speak to Kanye West as a person, so I can't speak to his definition of the word humility, but he seemed to be in a good or decent mental space when he was talking to Charlamagne. Despite how many contradictions there were in that same interview, he seemed to be in a decent place, in a somewhat he wasn't in a sunken place, in my opinion. So the next thing we get from Kanye is him talking to Charlamagne, like kind of giving an update on what we already know. By the end of that Charlamagne interview, I come to the realization I didn't learn shit new about Kanye in that interview. Kanye pretty much rehashed majority of what we already knew about him, just gave us an updated form of it. If you've seen the legendary Sway interview, if you've seen Kanye West on The Breakfast Club, or if you've seen any Kanye rant within the last 3 or 4 years, you know Kanye's biggest issue is trying to be a black man in corporate America and saying that there's this glass ceiling that they refuse to let you get beyond. And there are a couple of decent points that he references when it comes to other artists needing CEOs and them, you know, they should be treated like businesses, like he mentions a Lil Uzi Vert requiring the same amount of workers as a Dropbox, so the same amount of employees and the same amount of attention as the start of a Dropbox. Kanye's vision when it comes to clothing and fashion, when it comes to music, that to me is free thinking. That to me is Kanye giving up his raw opinion. That to me is okay. But when he's asked about his endorsement of Donald Trump, he doesn't have any reasons beyond me loving Donald Trump as a person, which is fine. I can look at Donald Trump and if I made myself, I could see a lot of good qualities about it. But his lack of reasoning when Charlamagne asks him what he sees in Donald Trump to endorse him, for the most part, it kind of leads me into this irrational behavior that Kanye's been showing us for the past few years, where everything he does is based off impulse and off of emotion. In the beginning of the interview, Kanye tries to come off or portray himself in such a way that makes himself seem as if he's not giving disingenuous answers, because he's trying to imply that everything he wants to say is from the gut. Everything he wants to say is from the heart. And to say to stop thinking so much about what you're saying before you say it. But he's literally and physically contradicting himself in this interview by taking these long pauses and these long breaks to think about his response when Charlamagne asks him a question. And that, to me, feels disingenuous to what Kanye West has been preaching the last couple weeks on Twitter, in interviews, or the two that he's done. That, to me, just goes against what he's been saying. It makes me feel like this is just a ploy to have an opinion without having to defend it. Because yes, you can have an opinion that is controversial or unpopular, but you still need to explain why you have that opinion. Even though he's trying to place himself in this unique category, still giving very PC answers in regards to questions about Jay-Z and questions about the fashion industry. The earlier stages, we hear Kanye talking about, oh, I love Jay-Z, I love Obama, and I can't speak to why they did what they did. But as we move further into the interview, we see that Kanye actually has opinions on why Jay-Z didn't come to his wedding. Kanye actually has opinions about Obama, and for some reason making it seem like Obama's distaste for Kanye's actions somehow is justification for Kanye to now criticize him for his lack of change in Chicago. And I'm definitely holding Barack Obama to a higher point of responsibility in regards to Chicago than I am Kanye West, because Obama was a president. So I'm not trying to connect the two and make it seem like Kanye should have been doing just as much as Obama when he was a president, when Kanye isn't. But Kanye's correlation is what makes his criticism of Obama odd to me, because his criticisms are limited to Obama no longer viewing Kanye as his favorite rapper. And this right here just lets me know how emotional Kanye West is, and why I feel it's so dangerous to not think about what you say before you say it. Why I think it's dangerous to live in your own thoughts, and not have many people go against your opinion frequently enough for you to actually argue yourself down. Because I don't think Kanye is, as much as he claims to be introspective, I don't think he is really viewing anything in the broader scheme until it affects him on his level. You know, racism that affects me at the workplace doesn't affect Kanye until he gets to the fashion industry and he sees that these people are saying that this is the plateau for you. That's when Kanye will speak up about racism. So all in all, did I enjoy the interview with Kanye West? I did, but I feel like I wasted my time. I feel like I didn't learn anything new about Kanye. I feel like he just gave me a part 2 to his part 1 of my issues with being a black man in corporate America, plus a slew of other problems that I've developed over the last few years. Now his defense of Trump is limited to him just being shocked that President Trump could get in office. But that means to me that that doesn't make Trump unique in that regard, that you would need to defend him on anything. Because if that's going to be your basis, if you're just trying to be shocked that someone of that demographic could get into the White House, I'd assume you feel the same way about a lesbian president that's outspoken and has no filter. I would assume you'd feel the same way about that. So I don't get why Donald Trump has to be the focus for that. Why not just say, I'm surprised someone like him could get there? That's literally what Kanye's praise is for, is that I'm just surprised that he got in office. We get to the worst part of Kanye speaking, and it's the TMZ interview. And I gotta say, you should watch the entire TMZ interview to keep everything in context. Don't just watch that 2-minute clip of Kanye saying slavery was a choice, because for the most part, that's what's gonna go viral. You need to see everything, I would say.
The Nazi symbol, if you go to India, it's all over the place, but it doesn't represent that. It represents something different.
But the thing is, he references the work of other people as if he's put himself through that same labor. To turn the symbol or the slogan, "Make America Great Again," into something positive, you'd have to put action behind it, as opposed to just wearing it and hoping for the best to come out of it. Wearing a hat, just like putting that Confederate flag on his jacket, it falls on deaf ears if no action is put behind it to make it something positive. You're not doing anything other than wearing the symbol, hoping people view it positively because you view it positively, not because you're doing anything to change the perception or the reality of what it means to people already.
For 400 years, that sounds like a choice.
This is the most disgusting thing I think I've heard anyone say in regards to slavery. I don't think I've ever heard someone say slavery was a choice. Even in avid racists, I don't think I've ever heard them say slavery was a choice. And I'm not shocked or hurt or put off or surprised by who is coming from. Your definition of free thought right now is only possible because of that lack of freedom from back then. Like, without 400 years of slavery, there might not be rap music. There might not be blues music. There might not be any kind of music that is enjoyed by the demographic of black people to the extent that it's enjoyed by without slavery. Because blues music came from woes, it came from soul. But you don't hear blues in most parts. You don't hear blues and hip hop music in Africa. You don't. You don't hear them making this shit up out of nowhere. It's something that was popularized in America as a response to systemic racism, and they were still experiencing it, so they figured, what better way to explain my story, and what better way to rebel against the country I feel like is putting me down, than to come out with this sound and this music. The very essence of Kanye West would cease to exist without that restraint from 400 years ago. To kind of better put into words what I think Kanye meant to say in regards to slavery being a choice, was being mentally enslaved, to the point where people felt not only comfortable but content in their lack of freedom, because they had been conditioned to believe that this is their worth, this is what this is as high as you're gonna go in this area. And I get what he's saying in the sense that the numbers are on their side, but he doesn't acknowledge that not only was supply not on their side, because what are you gonna do when you want to revolt, when you want to rebel against your oppressor? You need the supplies, you need the tools. Okay, you can't just fight. You have to get everyone on board. That's why just freeing a few slaves didn't end slavery, because everyone would have needed to be on board for that idea. You have people that are scattered all over the place, different slaves in different places, and separated from their own so that they couldn't come together and form those same plans. And even if they did, it was on such a small scale that in the grander scheme of things, it didn't have as huge of an impact as I feel some of them would have liked for it to. But to say that they didn't fight back, to say that they didn't want to come out of that, to say that all of them felt it was a choice, when you have your freedom taken from you, that's not a choice. When you're brought to another country and changed, that's not a choice. When you're separated from your family and bought for literally dollars or pennies, that's not a choice. The way Kanye rationalizes 400 years of slavery being a choice in his opinion is essentially narrowed down to him saying that if they were free thinkers like me, they would have been able to come out of it. I 100% guarantee you, if every slave from back in that time fought back against their oppressor, they would have lost. And black people would be 200 years behind what we are right now, because they would have just went back to Africa and got more slaves and had stricter laws placed on black people when they brought them here. It would have been 10 times worse for those people if they fought back completely, all of them in that time. So let's repeat it again. Blues music, rap music, all of that may not have existed without slavery. The very essence of Kanye West as an artist, or the thought of Kanye, may not be here without slavery. And I'm not giving props to it, but I'm acknowledging it as a part of history that may have given inspiration to other ideas.
Trump is one of rap's favorite people, right?
It's as if Kanye has been given this booklet or this pamphlet of the most basic arguments that you could ever use to support your claim that Trump isn't such a bad guy. And to me personally, I'm not saying that Trump is just this evil person. I have always said that I think Trump is a very culturally ignorant man. I didn't call Trump an evil person. I just don't think he's a right fit for president. I don't. Again, I say, referencing the revenue of someone of prominence does not mean you support them personally. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for talking about how there is a narrative to make Donald Trump seem like he's done nothing in office, when a simple Google search will show you anything positive that Donald Trump has done in the year that he's been president. It's just not as widely covered as his negatives, and I do believe there is a narrative in that. There are a lot of people who voice their opinion of Donald Trump that don't know anything of politics, and I understand that too.
I learned that mama's white and I'm black. My daughter was free. We start putting these ideals and ideals on people.
One thing I find extremely scary when Kanye West references his daughter in this interview and saying that she was free before her teacher told her that she was black. I find that really off-putting, because you view ignorance as freedom, and that's not true. Freedom is the ability to choose and make that decision for yourself, whether or not being black is a detriment or a positive to your life. That's why we have different perspectives. That's why we have different ideologies. That's why we have different ways of living. Because if you could look at your life and you didn't know your history, how is that freedom? That's ignorance. That's not freedom. You don't want her to look at herself as black because you know the plights of black people, but that doesn't make your freedom any less than someone who is of a different nationality or of a different color. Me not knowing my past and my people does not make me free. That, if anything, that changed me even more. I get the idea of not wanting your child to be classified as a certain thing, but those classifications allow people to make the decisions later on. And keep in mind, Northwest being black is not the exact same as any other kid in the world in any other random regular community being black. Kanye's definition of free thinking is without any responsibility or any logic. Thinking freely is supposed to be you being free from restraint while thinking, in my opinion. And the restraint is popular opinion. The restraint is what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to be. I get that. But you should still have reason and logic behind why you think the way you do, even if you can do so freely. You spouting off at the mouth at whatever comes to mind isn't free thought. It's word without thought. And his thought process is that of such a child. I'm witnessing a 40-year-old man be a child, and pretty much his basic concept here is love conquering everything, and love should be the reason that everything goes the way it's supposed to go, in his opinion. I agree you can disagree with love. I agree you can have issues and face challenges with love, but don't use love as an excuse to not face your issues. Don't use love as an excuse to undermine the problem. Don't try to make love seem like it's supposed to overshadow what's supposed to be fixed. Kanye's answer to any type of conflict is essentially to say it doesn't exist. That's why he believes you have no enemies.
It's okay for blacks to kill blacks, but if it's a white thing...
The last disgusting piece of this interview can be limited to Kanye West saying that, and Candace Owens, just call this the Kanye couple. I've had this argument thrown at me a lot in my life. Why black people can kill black people and there be no outroar or no outpour of emotion, but when white people kill black people, it's a problem. First of all, that sounds ridiculous to try to justify the killing of anyone by saying since one group does it and there's no outrage, the other one should be able to do it and there be no outrage too. But I'll answer the question regardless. Reason behind why black people kill black people and there's no outrage or news coverage really on it is because a black dude isn't looking at a black dude and killing a black dude because he's black. That 400 years of slavery that Kanye was talking about, that's why the perception of a white killing a black is so controversial. Because they don't know if the reason this person was killed at this white man's hands or white woman's hands is because they were black. We're not out of that racist period where you can look at that situation and not first think, was it because of the color of his skin? And especially with everything that's recently happened, to throw that narrative out of the window, it's just unrealistic. Now, I'm not saying you're justified in assuming can be chalked up to racism. I'm not saying that. But the question comes into people's mind before anything. And that's why when you see a white officer kill a black kid or a black woman, and you see it on the news, it gets such wide coverage because people don't know. It's controversial. But everyone knows that there isn't a such thing as black on black crime. That doesn't exist. Crime is crime. So when a white guy kills a white guy, it's not white on white crime. When a black guy kills a black guy, it's not black on black crime. It's crime. Because black guys don't see each other's color before they pull a trigger. Just like white men don't see each other's color when they're pulling a trigger. They're not looking at you and killing a white man because you're white. That doesn't make sense. That's a stupid question. So what I've been narrowed down to, in my opinion, of Kanye West at this point, is he is a child that thinks your problems will go away if you pretend they don't exist. That he's a person that thinks you don't have to have obstacles in the world to communicate with people. Those obstacles are going to occur. They're going to happen. That's just human interaction. I'm sure a vast majority of sensible people with common sense. I'm not talking about the liberal media that you see all over Twitter. I get some of them are oversensitive assholes. Some of them on Twitter are just like irrational. But there are sensible people in this world that have real issues with Donald Trump and the way he handles his presidency, that could sit in a room and talk with him about their discrepancies. They could do that. But to say you gotta love them, to say you gotta undermine everything that they do, to say that you have to be a free thinker, and basically free thinking is to overlook all of this, that doesn't make sense to me. You're not free thinking, Kanye. You're free feeling, and your feelings, just like feelings do, they change. I expect a different feeling or a different thought in 5 years from Kanye from this point. You're not consistent. You haven't been consistent in music, you haven't been consistent in thought, and you haven't been consistent in action. I'm off it. Kanye West, when your album drops, I'm looking at it from an unbiased perspective. None of your opinions that have been said in the past week are going to be brought up in that video. But if you want to put that in your music, don't be mad when people talk about it. Don't be surprised when your influence comes back to bite you in the ass. Get in the comment box. Let me know what you thought about the interview, about his comments in reference to TMZ, and let me know everything you're feeling about Kanye West right now. I'm Shawn C. I thank you for watching. If you've got questions, leave them in the comment section. I will see you next time. The only reason I've said all this is because I've seen people literally agree with this. I'm only saying what I'm saying right now because I know there are people who genuinely empathize with Kanye West. And as a person, I get where he's coming from, and I get his intentions and his motives, but they're not done in the right way at all. They're done without responsibility, and they're done from a very childish point of view. I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bye.